So as the January 6 hearings begin, I'm struck by the fact that some people think that these hearings aren't going to be very effective because it's summer and maybe people won't watch. And I'm even more struck by the fact that I've read a couple of articles with reporters expressing similar sentiments. But when I look at the chart for the beginning, I'm actually quite encouraged. You see Sagittarius rising, therefore Jupiter ruled. You see that there's a grand trine in air signs, signaling a process of communication, which is exactly what it is. You see that the third ninth axis, where information is collected and disseminated, feature the Leo Aquarius axis. Therefore, the sun rules the ninth, and Saturn is the primary ruler of the third and is in the third. And notice that they're in a trine to each other, such that the moon will first trine that sun, and then after that, carry the energy over to the Saturn, but the sun itself will also trine the Saturn. So it's a very nice grand trine and very reflective of what the hearings are trying to accomplish, which is communicate matters of law, communicate in general. And then you notice that Mercury and Venus in Taurus will be trining Pluto sequentially. First Mercury very quickly, and then Venus. This to me is symbolic of the sixth as a corrective measures type of house, trining Pluto, which is the idea of, first of all, confronting an insurrection, which I would connect to Pluto in a lot of ways, but also notice that Pluto in the chart is in Capricorn, sign of government, and co-rules the 12th. So there's a suggestion that this process is to enable the adjustment, the change, the overhaul of institutional norms, which I would associate to the 12th. So all of that to me is symbolically very positive. And then I even notice the transit in Jupiter, which is the ruler of the ascendant, happens to be in Aries, which is the fifth sign. The fifth sign is a place of entertainment. And I hear from some of my reading that they're trying to make it quite a show. They're trying to make it entertaining for people, which I think is quite important and will certainly help them to make the case. You also notice that the chart connects really interestingly to the US chart in that the moon position is in the range of the US Saturn degrees. The US Saturn degrees are around 14 plus, the moon is at 18 at the start of the proceedings. But if you do a precession correction to that Saturn, it's pretty much in the 17, 18 degree range. So it fits really well. And then notice that the transiting Saturn is near the US moon, because in fact, this chart, like the US chart, is also Sagittarius rising. So it's the same third sign, but you're putting Saturn in contact with the US moon, which to my mind reflects the seriousness of the matter, as well as the accountability that is being attempted, which is one of the signature themes when Saturn is involved. And then notice that the sun position is pretty close to the US Mars, I think at 19 degrees Gemini, it's in that range. And so that triggers the natal opposition in the US, or pardon me, the natal square in the US chart between Mars and Neptune. That to me just signals the divisive nature of the whole thing, because a little more than half the country is very interested in this and wants to see justice, and a little less than half the country seems to want the opposite. And this is exacerbated by the fact that the transiting Neptune happens to be opposing itself, which is the same energy as back in the 1860s during the Civil War, signaling a very divided electorate, which of course is a problem. And finally, the chart is also interesting. The chart, meaning the January 6th hearing chart, is very interesting in that it highlights the chart of an individual who is really, by most, if not all measures, the central subject for this committee, because this is all about the Orange Menace and his role in basically promoting, fomenting, aiding. He did everything he could to make the insurrection happen. And in fact, that's what has been the topic in the news the last while, that the committee is trying to show Trump's role as clearly as possible. And you see that it's coming up on his birthday. So the sun is near its own position at birth, and the moon is in Libra. Now, this, in most cases, could be quite good, because birthdays can be quite good for a lot of people. The moon going over, or rather near, the degrees of Jupiter would be a good thing. His problem is that the entire flow of the transits is so against him by the position of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Eris, that in fact, having this kind of action where you're highlighting a part of the chart like this actually becomes a problem. It brings you into the foreground, but it brings you into the foreground to basically display your problems. Probably the worst in terms of the beginning of these hearings would be the transiting Saturn opposing his Mars. But all of them really are quite complicated, every single one, from Jupiter all the way to Eris. And matter of fact, they get worse, as I said in a prior video, they get worse as we move into the summer, suggesting that he's going to become more and more rattled and more and more defensive, and probably more raging angry as the weeks pass. All right, there you have it for now. I'll be doing, I'm sure, at least 1 or 2 more videos on this topic in the upcoming days and weeks.